Well, Roger, watching TVC Breakfast, let's get to our next discussion now. Nigerians were once described as being some of the happiest people on earth, but it's no longer the case as we have now become the most depressed people in Africa, according to latest figures released by the World Health Organization. Now, this has resulted in far-reaching consequences. The suicide rate in the country and indeed across the world is on the increase. Experts in the field of mental health say there's a link between depression and climbing suicide rates. That is the crux of our discussion. Now, joining us to help understand factors responsible for the rising suicide rate and ways to check the trend is Dr. Bunjubola Abiri, consultant psychiatrist and mental health advocate. It's nice to have you join us in the studio.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
And we also have joining us on Zoom Dr. Maimuna Kadiri, a psychiatrist and mental health advocate as well. Dr. Kadiri, it's nice to have you join us.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's great to be here.
Great. Now, let me start from the studio here. Now, we have seen in the last few weeks, we've heard of reports of persons, jumping into the lagoon, and then the reports we hear afterwards that either some of them were depressed or some had arguments, and things like that. But tell us, what from the mental or psychiatrist perspective, that's scientific part of it, what can make anyone wake up and say, you know what, I can't take it anymore, I want to commit suicide? What's that thing?
All right. Well, so I think it's important to first of all talk about what suicides are. And suicide is self-intentioned, self-inflicted harm, whereby the individual knows what it is that they want to do, and they know that the outcome at the end of the day is going to be fatal. And so for different people at different times, at different seasons of their lives, the reasons why they may decide to die by suicide will be different. It will be different for different age groups, different, genders, socioeconomic status as well. However, what we have found as, mental health consultants is that more often than not, in more than 80% of people who go on to take their lives by suicide, what we've seen is that there's usually an underlying, undiagnosed, undetected, and untreated mental health condition. And so in about 80% of those cases, you'd find that these individuals may have, an underlying mood disorder such as depression, a psychotic disorder such as schizophrenia, substance abuse problems such as alcohol use disorders, or even physical conditions that they are, finding difficult to manage because all of those conditions already have complications. It's also very important to state that there are times when individuals die by suicide under intense pressure when they feel a loss of control or a high degree of hopelessness. And so in those situations, people can decide when they are impulsive, they just take that impulsive decision without thinking about what's the next best thing that can happen to me, that perhaps it is better to end it all by suicide.
Yeah, let me ask the person who's Kadiri.
Yeah, Dr. Kadiri.
Dr. Kadiri.
Yes, please.
There was a story a few days ago about a lady who jumped into the lagoon. I mean, this issue of lagoon, if it were in the 18th century or 19th century, people would have said that there was some mermaid in the water calling people to come and die, and so on. Maybe there will be people doing some people will be specializing as babalawos to prevent the voice of the mermaid coming to them. But what kind of mermaid was in the mind of that girl? After a lover's part, what went into your mind as a psychiatrist when you heard the story about the girl who was doing well in her work, who had, an engagement with her lover? I saw the video; it was so touching and so on. But then to contrast it with what happened, it's very heart-wrenching. As a psychiatrist, what went into your mind when you first heard that story?
Thank you very much. I think that is one of the myths when it comes to suicide. People believe that when you have it all together, you are not at risk of taking your life. And I, as an addendum to what my colleague in the studio is saying, we are very deliberate in choosing our words when it comes to suicide. We don't use the word commit suicide, because the moment you say commit, it means as if it's criminal. It's a criminal offense. And in Nigeria, we still know that it's a misdemeanor if you try to take your life. Is 1 year imprisonment. So we rather use the word die by suicide. For that young girl, we all saw the video, being celebrated in her office, engagement on the way, and all of a sudden, from what the taxi or cabman said was that she was having an argument on the phone, or rather there was something going on the other side. But what he could observe was the fact that the girl was, in disagreement with somebody, and all of a sudden she aligned from the cab and then plunged into the lagoon. So a myth that people need to understand that some people that even have it all together, rich, famous, of course, we know the story of Anthony Burden, Robbie Williams, Spate, and some of the popular DJs. One popular DJ we've had here in Nigeria that also took his life. The truth is that when people all look put together, it doesn't mean that their life internally or behind the scene is put together. Untreated, undetected depression is highly linked to people that take their life. Even substance abuse, people can take their life on impulse. So for me, as a mental health expert, when I got tagged. I woke up very early. I woke up in the morning. Of course, Nigeria is way ahead of me where I am. And I was wondering what is happening again. And I found out that it was a young and a very beautiful young lady who just took her life. The truth is that we don't know the story. And because of stigma and discrimination and taboo attached to mental health and people living with mental illnesses, even at the end of the day she's found, family members may not really come out to say this is what has been happening or this is what she's going through and all that. So this is the reason why we are very we are in this movement in talking about mental health, people living with mental illnesses, high increasing rate of suicide, and people getting help if they are dealing with any mental health issues, because it could be substance abuse. And the truth is that when people have relationship crisis, financial crisis, chronic pain, chronic illnesses, it can be very impulsive, and they can just take their life just like that, because sometimes at that point in time, they may be feeling hopeless, worthless, and helpless. So those are some of the things that can easily make somebody be impulsive and just take her life or his life.
In Shoyinka's Death and the King's Horseman, the word suicide was phrased in a very funny way when the white man was talking about election but wanted to commit ritual suicide. He said they wanted to commit death. So you can say commit suicide, he said commit death. That's how the Nigerians said it. He said the person wanted to commit death. So that is how complicated this thing can be. I was given the story of camera about my grandfather, who he got to a particular age and he said he wanted to die, and he was not dying. And when eventually he died and they cleared where he was sitting, they discovered that all the drugs they were giving him, he was not taking them, and they were not sweeping the back of the chair. So when they were clearing the place after he passed on, they saw heaps of tablets that he was not taking.
And he wasn't taking.
Yeah, so it means he was instrumental suicide. Is there such thing as instrumental suicide?
Well,
is there something that you guys have looked at?
Well, so clearly, I mean, when you look at a case like that and you look at what epidemiology says,
yes.
While suicides are quite high in young people, we also find that an attempt to complete suicides is actually higher in older people. And so in these older people, what they tend to do is that they tend to engage in what is known as deliberate self-harm. Deliberate self-harm may not be evident to everyone. And so they may attempt to, refuse to eat, refuse care, refuse to use their medication, but in a way that, each and every day they are slowly losing it. And so for someone like your, grandfather, who unfortunately passed away at the end of the day, what happened was that, well, all the conditions that were supposed to be managed by all of those medications clearly were not managed. And the man was hoping, and eventually it happened, that, the system just decided that it was time to shut down. So it's important that we highlight that suicides also happen in elderly persons. And when they also go ahead to do it, they do it in such a way that they are definitive about it, and it is more likely than not to happen.
They're likely to be wiser than every other person.
Oh, well, I mean...
so they're able to con every other person that they're not dying.
Exactly.
They're really doing well.
Yes.
I used to say, I've often said that prosperity is not always paradise. And that hope is better than prosperity. Yes. In other words, if you think you have everything you have, and that is the end of your having, it means you don't have any hope. So a man who is poor has a healthier sense of life and greed for the future than a man who is rich, who is even afraid of losing his wealth. This is the story of Okonkwo when he said that Okonkwo, the thing that was driving him was fear. Yes.
Exactly. That's in Things Fall Apart. Exactly. All right, Dr. Kadiri, let me come to you on this. Yes. Can you share with us some of the early signs? When someone is prone to suicide, from what we hear all of you say sometimes, that there must be or there could be some early signs that one should look out for. What are those signs that one should look out for, either to friends or colleagues or relatives and so on, that you would advise?
Yeah, very important question. And this is where every person is needed and all hands need to be on deck, whether family, friends, foe, colleague, even at work, we all need all hands on deck in just, looking out for what we call these warning signs or red flags. Signs like person withdrawing to self, no longer interacting the way he or she used to interact before, what we call social isolation or social withdrawal. On the flip side, the person may be, very boisterous, very outgoing. There's just that change about this individual that you are noticing. Either is now more withdrawn or now more outgoing. Some of them now use alcohol or other substances more than before. Some even start planning their own funeral and start talking about, if the person is quite religious, so let rapture take place now. Let the world just come to an end. This is somebody ordinarily would not be talking about such a thing. If you hear such words from a loved one, ask questions. This is when you really listen, not judgmentally to them, create that safe space so that they can speak up and speak out, and you wouldn't criticize them, and most importantly, as Nigerians, you wouldn't be apostolic towards them. So you have to watch out for those warning signs. Some of them can even start dashing out their, choice things, choice properties. This is a friend that that this bag, he holds it or she holds it very dear to her heart. All of a sudden, he's telling you that you asked me the other day if you like this bag. Take this bag, I'm dashing you. You should be wary of such, impulse kind of thing. So those are some of the warning signs. Some of them may start even showing those signs of depression, crying easily, and aside from that, some of them may be very angry. They can even go into a range. So those warning signs, for me, I always tell people, look out for one word: change. What has changed in this individual that wasn't there before that you are noticing now? What has changed in this individual that wasn't there yesterday that you are noticing now and is becoming more frequent? Those are some of the things that we should all, look out for and be able to nip on board and help that person. They may not be able to say it the way they are feeling, and you will not really know exactly what it is because it's not showing in our faces. It's not explicit what this person is going through. They can be, like I said, very outgoing and all that, but you just wake up and find out that the person has taken his or her life. So pay more attention. Most importantly, we created that safe space where they can speak up and speak out. Because when they speak up and you're like, I see that everybody is depressed in Nigeria, is it only you? Everybody is having issues. I'm not naira to dollar now. Do you know what it is? It further reenacts the fact that they are not loved. They don't feel loved. So if I can say this to my loved one and it's telling me to go and see that everybody is depressed, then who should I express myself to? So that can just make them to say, let me see, I've already said that I don't feel loved, that I feel hopeless and worthless. So let me just go ahead and do what I have to do. So those are red flags. Those are warning signs. And if you notice that in anybody, please get them to seek help, encourage help-seeking behavior, to meet the right people at the right places, and of course, the right time. And there's no better time than now if you have any loved one who is feeling this way.
Some people say that sometimes the greatest sign is a sense of peace. That is the most scary thing I've ever heard about people who are suicides. That when you see that they feel that everything is settled, now they have made a pact with death already, so they're no longer worried. So how do you get to that point of telling the person that you're a little too peaceful for me? I need to treat this your peacefulness.
Your peacefulness.
So, it's interesting that, again, as Dr. Kadri just mentioned, that we should, have a high index of suspicion and also, notice the smallest changes. But of course, sometimes, like you said, the sign is there is no sign. Everything appears well, everything appears okay. This person is, very calculated. They're very decisive about what it is that they want to do. And at the end of the day, of course, they've, put in place measures to ensure that they will never be found. And so some people, have gone on to take their own lives, traveled distances, miles away from family, left notes that, they took with them, maybe, stayed in a cottage or somewhere, and then decided to take their own lives. And so sometimes, and it's scary, but it's also very important that we also stated here that even for professionals, psychiatrists, research has shown world over that sometimes patients who actually come to see a psychiatrist even a week before could actually still take their lives. The doctor will ask all the questions, you do everything that you need to do, you tick all the boxes, but until that person verbalizes, opens up to you and says that this is what I'm going through, the honest truth is that you may never know. Sometimes, you find people who are struggling with, chronic physical health conditions, in pain, conditions that have, no cure, and we're just managing. For instance, I had someone say to me last week that she had a relative who they wanted to amputate a limb, and he said, instead of amputating my limb, instead of letting me go back to my maker the way I came, I would rather end my life. This is you thinking, if we give you a new limb, you have a better quality of life. Exactly. You could stay here for another 5 years. But for that individual, they see their lives as over. And so, again, paying attention to the signs, the very overt signs, and sometimes the covert signs, because the honest truth is that there may be no sign at all.
Yeah, and it happens to soldiers. What you have said happens to soldiers. Sometimes they kill themselves when they discover, my leg is out. The lady that I've been saying that I went to impress, that I went to so I'll come now without one leg. I rather die than, take the poison or take the bomb and kill myself and so on. I had a story, the first suicide I've ever encountered was a young man when I was very small in Ibadan. This man was a member of the church and was always showing enthusiasm, was a bachelor, and he came to our house one time and came with this the first time I knew of this music album, the Everly Brothers. Okay. And he kept playing it. He visited us on a Saturday and it was there. Then it was later that my dad told me, said, this man has a problem, he's very lonely and so on. That's why he came. That's why he took time off and he made sure that we paid attention to him, played with him all the while. Then not long after that, we heard that he jumped into a pond and he was rescued. So they were planning in the church one Wednesday. The women in the church said, maybe one of them said, maybe I should take my daughter to go and even stay with him because we don't know what's going on with this man. Not knowing that very evening when they were talking about him, the man had taken pills and killed himself. Right. So they come in different ways, and I wonder, maybe Kadri, you can talk to it, how you guys cope with the various surprises. I'm sure this idea of suicide is an enterprise in surprises. You never know who and you never know where and how it's going to come.
Yeah, these things happen. One very key risk factor to completed case of suicide is a previous history of attempted suicide. And for every one completed case of suicide, which is more in men, there are 20 attempted cases of suicide in women. So women, attempt suicide more, but men tend to complete suicide. And this is where we all have to drive home the message regarding our nurturing our children, whereby we are telling our boys, be a man up, you are not man enough, those kind of words, and men don't cry. So when they get into those kind of crisis situation, they find themselves, look, it's with weakness of character for me to go seek for help. Let me just end it all. Unlike a woman that will go on Facebook and say, I want to kill myself, all of us will be running up and down, run to her house, break the door, look for her, and all those kind of things. So we've seen various ways whereby people do take their lives. Family members waking up to somebody taking his or her life. The person, taking a very risky way of hanging himself. Most times men do hang themselves than women, or plunge into the lagoon and all that. We've even seen cases whereby, they drop the notes and then they poison themselves and poison the whole family. I've had a case where a 13-year-old poisoned the whole pot of soup in the family. But luckily, the cook was able to detect that. And when they brought her to our facility, she was not remorseful. She was saying that, why did they prevent it? The thing was that she wanted everybody to eat the food. She should also eat, and everybody would die. And she told me, case closed. So we've seen cases where some people don't just want to go alone. They also want to take other people along with them. So as a psychiatrist, many reasons and many ways we've seen people, take their life, and family members are affected. Because truly, for every one completed case of suicide, over 130 members of family, friends, colleagues are affected. So it leaves a lot of bitter taste in the mouth of those that are alive, and of course leave a lot of guilt feeling. If I had known, I should have called, I should have gone ahead, I should have reached out to this person, and all this if and all. So these are some of the things we are talking about with regards to the movement in advocating for mental health, people living with mental illnesses, including their families, so that we can do much more than just the talk. We need to walk the talk.
All right. I really wish we had time to talk about this, because we also would have liked to know the role of religion in all of this, especially when we have churches on every street in Lagos and parts of Nigeria now, have churches springing up every day, giving people hope, prosperity, and all of that. Yet we have the cases of suicide rising.
And maybe they are even helping with the suicides too.
All right, maybe,
with the announcement of miracles. You have your miracles, where's my own miracle?
Maybe we'll have time to talk about all of those other, areas that we couldn't talk about today. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Maimuna Kadiri, for coming on the program and letting us know what we have to look out for and all of that. Thank you so much. And Dr. Bonjubola Abiri, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
I really appreciate both of you.